of the gates and ready to go here on Saints Now by Chat Sports. T.J. Watt, he took to his Instagram story and posted a little bit of a cryptic photo. Deuces. That's what I'm seeing. So we're going to talk about whether or not the New Orleans Saints should trade for the star edge rusher. Welcome into Saints Now by Chat Sports. My name is Trizzy Trace Girouard. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. No matter where you are or how you're watching, we always appreciate the Who Dat Nation for making us a part of their day. Now, Mark Kaboly, he took to X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and he put out this report. After talking to people, I'd keep an eye on the Steelers' T.J. Watt contract situation moving forward a little bit more closely. It doesn't appear that the picture he posted the other day was just by chance. He imagines an extension is still going to be inevitably get done, but the price tag, it just might have gotten a little bit higher. So, that little post there, maybe it does happen, maybe it doesn't. But I do think that the New Orleans Saints should at least kick the tires on potentially trading for T.J. Watt. Because if this whole contract discussion ends up going sideways and things don't work out, maybe the New Orleans Saints are a team that could benefit from bringing in a player of T.J. Watt's caliber. They definitely need to improve the pass rush. Brandon Staley's defense within 3-4 scheme is perfect for a player like him. And we're going to get into great detail, the financials, and everything else in between here on Saints Now by Chat Sports. But really quick, we got to give you an updated look at our 2025 sub battle. We're absolutely crushing Falcons today, but let's keep the momentum going. We got to chip away to the road to 50,000 subscribers. And if you need a reason to subscribe, you just got to hate the Falcons. This channel absolutely despises the Dirty Birds. So subscribe today for daily Saints videos, draft coverage, and live shows all throughout the season. And off season too, I should say. Now, I want to first start off by talking about this changes to Brandon Staley's defense, because we should be expecting a 3-4 base defense, which means you're going to have 3 defensive linemen, you have 4 linebackers, and 4 defensive backs, with the core principles and Brandon Staley highlighting versatility and flexibility being key factors for the personnel on the defense and for the scheme of the defense. They want to be able to defend against all types of different offenses, because some offenses are going to be more pass happy. Some offenses will be more run happy. Some of these offenses have multiple talented wide receivers or a great tight end, but they want to be able to defend against everyone. And I do believe this is going to be a more modern defense. I believe it's a more modern scheme, and I think the Saints will benefit from just a schematic change, but also, like this last note says here, the Bo Davis hire from LSU to the National Football League. He climbs the ranks, he moves up to the NFL, and he joins the Saints coaching staff, and I think that it's going to be very, very big for the New Orleans Saints. Now, a 5-man front should be at least expected sometimes. This is going to be used situationally, and it'll be used on obvious running downs, 3rd and short, and that kind of stuff. And the Saints want to find a way, we know for a fact, they want to find a way to get their best players on the field. So this is an expected look of what the defensive line or the 5-man front could look like, with your outside edge rushers, your outside linebackers being Carl Granderson and Chase Young, 2 very athletic pass rushers. But then Brian Brzee and Cameron Jordan are on the interior at the end spots, with Devon Gottschall being your nose tackle. And, I do think that a 4-man front should also be very, very highly used. Brandon Staley even saying that they're going to be using the 4-man fronts and the nickel packages about 70% of the time at this point. It's a 3-receiver league, so you got to be able to match up with 5 defensive backs. So expect this 4-man front to be very active. 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 defensive backs. This will be used a lot on passing downs, on early downs, on those 1st and longs, 2nd and longs, and that kind of stuff. And Brandon Staley has said they plan on running out of the nickel package 70% of the time, like I mentioned earlier. Kellen Moore, he argues that modern teams live and die by nickel packages, and so I do expect the Saints to explore this option a lot as well. But quite frankly, it doesn't matter if we're talking about scheme. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the personnel. The defensive line has to improve. It has to happen. This was a very underwhelming group last year. When you look at the top 5 production in sacks for the New Orleans Saints, one of those is a cornerback. I love Alontae Taylor. I want that to be very, very clear. This is not a knock on Uno. This is more so of a knock on the production of the entire defensive line outside of Brian Brzee, who I'm a big, big fan of as well. And I do think when it comes to adding talent and creating a better defensive line and creating a better defense, TJ Watt is a player that is 100% going to be worth every single penny you pay him. It's expensive, not just in terms of the contract, but in terms of the trade compensation. You're going to have to give up quite a haul, but I would say it is 100% worth it. I mean, look at what this guy has done over the last handful of seasons. 11 and a half sacks, 19 freaking sacks in 2023, 5.5 in 2022, whatever. But in 2021, 22 and a half. I mean, this guy is a bona fide star edge rusher, and that is what the New Orleans Saints are missing. I mean, right now, I see 11 and a half sacks. That is more than multiple of the top 5 artists when you combine them. That is absolutely incredible production from TJ Watt. I would love to see him in the black and gold and trade in that black and yellow for black and gold, or the Steelers like to say it's gold. No, trade in actual gold for actual, or trade in that fake gold for actual gold. That's kind of my take here. I do think that I would love to trade for TJ Watt. I mean, if you're just talking about, is this a good move and should the Saints do it? Yeah, 100%. But is it realistic? That's another conversation. We have to talk finances, but I just want to get your gauge here. Would you trade for TJ Watt? Yes or no? Get down in the comment section and share your thoughts, because I want to continue this conversation. Saints fans, finances are a big deal for us. The money is a big deal for us because we're always, swimming around in cap hell, if you will. I could see TJ Watt wanting to be higher up on this list. He's currently ranked 7th in highest paid edge rushers per year. And when you're putting up the type of numbers that he puts up, you're definitely going to want to earn more money. So I could honestly see TJ Watt wanting to see money that's similar to that Myles Garrett contract, which is a lot of freaking dough. Again, he's worth it. He is a very, very good player. Great players demand a lot of money, but they also put up really good production, and they are players that make a big impact. So I would love to see the New Orleans Saints try to make this happen, but in terms of what it'll look at, I mean, 4 years, $160 million, averaging $40 million a year, you're definitely going to need to at least beat the average or at least beat the guaranteed money if you want to pull this off. And I can sit here and tell you right now, I just don't think it's very realistic, considering the Saints, they don't even have $30 million of cap space right now, and you could clear up money. You could try and find a way if you wanted to. And, let's not pretend like the New Orleans Saints haven't been a team that's operated in the red before. But, I also will say this. I just don't know if it makes sense. I mean, right now the odds makers have it at plus 4,000 odds, which is pretty low on the totem pole in terms of the Saints pulling this off. I mean, I really do wish they could do it. I wish the Saints could afford to trade for TJ Watt. I would love this move. I think he's a phenomenal football player. But I do think it's smarter to look ahead and look at the draft. I think that you got to be conscious and be aware that you don't have all the money in the world to spend, and you have to be smart about future spending and future money. But I do think a player like TJ Watt is 100% worth the investment. The Saints can pull it off. I'm all in. But I just don't think it makes too much sense for New Orleans. Now, really quick, we're going to get into some draft targets at the edge rusher position, because I just said go draft route. So we're going to tell you who you guys should keep your eye out on and who is a potential draft pick. But really quick, today's show would not be made possible if it weren't for our awesome friends over at Game Time. And guys, basketball season, where are my fans at? Baseball season, where are my Seams heads at? This has been a tough season for the Pelicans. However, you can get tickets for dirt cheap, and even cheaper now with the Game Time app. Download Game Time, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But you don't have to just get tickets to basketball. You can get tickets to college baseball, professional baseball. Heck, we even got tickets to Saints games if you want to get those as well. And Game Time is so great, they don't just stop at sports. They also have tickets to concerts, comedy shows, and other live events in your area. Jazz Fest is right around the corner. Fun fact, it actually starts on draft day. So, shout out to Jazz Fest for, going on during the NFL draft. I encourage you to tune into our draft coverage. But if you're dead set on going to Jazz Fest, get yourself some tickets. Save $20. Use code CHATSPORTS. Get $20 off your first purchase. Game Time, you should make sure you check out the Super Deals feature. These tickets are best valued for the events, and Game Time will highlight those tickets and let you know that they are super deals. They also have a Game Time Picks feature. Makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets that you know you're not going to buy anyway. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Terms do apply, but once again, that's code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All that information is in the comments and description of this video. Now let's start this conversation around the edge rusher draft targets, because I do think the Saints need to prioritize edge rusher, and I think that the Saints need to leave with at least one or two in this year's draft class. So let's first kick things off with the hybrid edge rusher, Jalen Walker. He's a little bit of a linebacker, a little bit of an edge rusher. He genuinely played about 50-50 in terms of splitting his snaps and coverage versus as in the pass rush. And I mean, he's a really good football player, and I do think that he's a guy who needs to see a little bit more development in terms of the coverage side of the game. And, I would like to see him master his edge rushing ability too. In terms of the coverage, he had allowed 10 out of 12 receptions, an 83.3 completion percentage, 89 yards, and a touchdown. I do wonder how things will go with Jalen Walker in the National Football League. I think he could be a good tool for Brandon Staley's defense, and I think he fits what the Saints need as a versatile defensive piece. I think Jalen Walker would be a good guy to go and draft, but I also could see the Saints looking at like Mykel Williams, for example, if you wanted to go with a more true edge rusher out of Georgia. But let's kick it over to Mike Green, who might be honestly one of the most sneaky good draft prospects in my personal opinion. I'm a big fan of the Marshall product, and I understand that it's a smaller school, but the Sun Belt ain't no joke, and it is a conference that, has seen some players go off and do some pretty good things, and I think Mike Green could be the next great Sun Belt player in the National Football League, and, we'll see how he holds up versus the run, and, we'll see how things go whenever he takes on higher competition at a higher level. But I will also say this, I think you could get him later in the first round, and he is a player I expect the Falcons to be very high on. So if you have to deal with him, I would rather just have him on the roster, to be totally honest. He's a very impressive athlete with really good production. He has a knack for knocking balls loose, giggity. He's a very good athlete, and he actually he actually played decent in terms of the time that he played against Ohio State. Only 15 pass rush snaps. It wasn't a very close game, but he did do okay in terms of the Pro Football Focus grades there. He's a very productive player. I would love to see him in the black and gold, so that's a guy to definitely keep an eye out on. But let's talk about another option. Donovan Ezuraku, a Boston College product out of the ACC. I mean, I'm not against drafting this guy. You'd be shocked if I told you that a guy at a Boston College led the NCAA in sacks. That I'm sure a lot of you guys would not believe me if I told you that. But he had a grand total of 16.5 sacks last year. That was number one in NCAA. And then he was second in tackles for loss with 21 of those. That was very good. He was the Ted Hendricks Award winner, which goes to the best edge rusher or the best defensive end in the National Football League. I keep saying that. It's the best defensive end in college football. It's a little bit undersized. It's 6'2", 248 pounds. It's 34.5-inch arms, but the production is very impressive. A 14% pressure rate, 60 pressures on the season. He doesn't have great bend, but he is a player that's lengthy. It's way better than what's expected for his height. He has a solid pass rush plan. He's an overall good athlete. Not a great athlete, but he is definitely a player who is a bit undersized. However, not as quick as you'd hope, but it's not like a big deal. Like he's a good football player, a good athlete, just not a great athlete. Now, who's an edge rusher you want to draft? We got to go and get a defensive end. I want you to get in the comments. We're giving you, 3? We're going to give you 2 more. Now let's keep this party rocking and rolling. And speaking of Rocky, good old Rocky Top. Woo! James Pierce Jr. He's the next guy we're going to hone in on here. And I just can say this. I'm a big fan of James Pierce Jr.'s game. I really like him. There is the potential of the character concerns. Not a lot of people really know what's going on there. There's question about the off-field and, what makes him tick, like his motivation and the red flags and stuff are just things to monitor. And there is anger issue claims out there and reports of the coaching staff at Tennessee not really loving him. But, I mean, he's a very productive player, 38 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, who's really good in the SEC. And, he's a player that you could honestly give like a Randy Gregory comp to. Also, I will say this. He had 5 flags last year. 2 were declined. A 21.4 pressure rate is really good. 21.1 pressure rate in 2023. He's a good football player. 10 sacks in 2023, 7.5 in 2024. I'd be very excited about this potential pick. Now, Landon Jackson. I want to talk about Landon Jackson. We've talked about him quite a bit here on the channel. In case you guys didn't know, I went to the University of Arkansas. Landon Jackson's team beat James Pierce Jr.'s team. Just had to put that out there in case you guys didn't know. Landon Jackson, let's talk about him because he's an athletic freak. By athletic freak, it's not the athleticism that's freakish. It's the size and the profile. Like, all of that is very freakish. 6'7", 280 pounds. The dude is a absolute behemoth. About 33-inch arms. Some places are going to have him at 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". The dude's just very, very large. He's a very high motor. He's exceptional against the run, and the Saints' run defense was absolutely terrible last year. But he does lack the athleticism to be like an amazing, just true edge rusher. I think he can be a guy who's very good against the run, but also very good as an edge rusher. And Cameron Jordan, he's a player that has always prided himself in being a good run stopper and a good edge rusher. So maybe Landon Jackson can learn a thing or two from Wham Bam. Thank you, Cam. The production's not going to jump off the screen, but he is a player who has really, really nice size, really good power, really good length as well. And he is a player that has a very high motor, and he's a guy that I think is a good culture fit for the New Orleans Saints. And honestly, I could see Brandon Staley getting very, very creative, and Bo Davis could work some magic with him. Fun fact, Landon Jackson was at LSU for a season or two, so there is a little bit of ties to the boot. There's some ties to the Saints right there, so you got to love that. And, like I said, Bo Davis at LSU. Landon Jackson was at LSU at one point, so there you go. Got to love that. And now, guys, this was a fun video. I had a good time doing this. TJ Watt trade rumors, 5 draft targets. If you guys want to get more coverage in between these videos, hit your boy up on social media. X, Instagram, and TikTok. It's going to be linked in the comments and description of this video. I'm trying to get to 5,000 followers on X ASAP. And then, of course, on Instagram and on TikTok, your boy's just trying to gain his following there as well. So hit me up if you guys are diehard Saints fans. Y'all stay golden, and we'll see you next time.